Hello, welcome back. I guess I'm kind of giving my 2 cents here on what happened July 13th on Saturday with the president. I've really listened to a lot of commentators, seen a lot of videos, and I don't want to come to any conclusions. I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus. I'm a very small channel here. Now, there's just a lot. The more we learn, the more questions we all have. Was his car a Hyundai Sonata, or was it the van? If they've searched his laptop or laptops and cell phone, and there's no searches for the stuff they found in the van, the explosives, who did it for him? I don't think this kid was working alone. The parents were like, where's our son, where's our son, where's our son, supposedly that Saturday, and supposedly had the cops out looking for him. When I was in college, about that same age, I commuted. I didn't have a dorm room at all, and I was a little jealous. And there was one time I was stayed so late at night. There were no cell phones back then. This is the 90s. And I stayed on campus in someone's dorm room and just sort of knocked myself out. And because I didn't want to disturb my parents, unbeknownst to me, they panicked. I never came home. They called the police early in the morning, and the police were like, well, we can't do anything until he's been missing for at least 48 hours. 2 days. 2 full days before local cops would do anything. Suffice it to say, I got an earful when I finally got home, and I think they gave me a bag phone, which we probably couldn't afford. The few times I used it, the bill was astronomical because it was, back then. So I wonder how these progressive parents were able to get police looking for their son so quickly. I know it's a small town. Maybe that's the key there. Or could it be a front? Could they have been the ones that helped him? I don't know. Nobody knows. There was a video where you saw an area, the neighborhood where the boy lived. I think he still lived with his parents. The media were not allowed to go down a certain street and get any closer. So then the person that was videoing panned around, and you just saw a line and just a mess of cameras and tripods. And I'm like, wow. And I forgot what channel here I saw that. And I'm just like, interesting. So, hopefully it wasn't his parents, but this was obviously too big of a job for just this one kid. Even though everything seemed to be he was doing was on the fly. We've seen some memes and funny videos of somebody, going, a guy holding like a 12-foot ladder going through an empty field. Oh, this isn't suspect at all. Well, the ladder he got was about a 5 to 6 foot ladder. But the ladder that they show up against the building looks longer. So I wonder if it was an extendable ladder, or that, could fold or something, that he was able to get it in the back of his car, or if he was using that van. Again, there's 2 possible vehicles, or we're getting conflicting information. Then there was another video where it was a woman. I don't know if she was part of the detail or part of the local police or something, and they were, mentioned the van, but they were also talking about the water tower. Then we saw a cool 3D image of that whole area, not just the building that the boy was on, but also a water tower kind of in a Y pattern, almost equidistant from where he was. So even though the building he was on for that structure was not a part of the actual area that the president was giving his speech for his rally, it was adjacent to it. And then adjacent to that was the water tower. I'm like, interesting. And I don't know if there was a report of someone on the water tower or someone going up to the water tower that they were trying to get down. So maybe they did prevent that. But at the same time, there was another person who was I won't say ballistic expert, but a hunter or some guy that shoots. In the one image that they show a lot, where you can see like the bullet coming in from his backside, they're saying looks too straight to have been coming from the angle at which the guy on the roof was laying for it to, go at the man. And I'm like, that's interesting. I'm trying to take all this information with a grain of salt while trying to learn a little bit of the process, and we all need to be doing this. And yes, there was a lot of fault with the Secret Service. Apparently the detail they change out every now and then. I was thinking to myself, well, what if, Biden's administration and they rotate the security agents, from what I hear. And I just heard, was it Michael Berry or somebody, like on the Morning Minute thing, about he knew somebody that was in the security detail, but then he got moved to another section, because they do that every so often to keep them on their toes, so to speak. So maybe it was Trump's time to get the DE&I crew, and Biden's admin is like, he's going where? Give him the DE&I crew, give him the women. I don't know. But it was just very bad, from a party, for the Democrat Party that is so heavily on optics, relies so hard on optics and looks. And when we saw these short little women, half the size of Trump, after they get him into the SUV, it just blood all on the side of his face. And these women in their ponytails whipping their ponytails back, looking around. It just looked ridiculous. And then one of them was having a problem just trying to holster their gun. And obvious, it seemed kind of obvious to me. I don't handle a lot of guns, I will admit, but at the same time, I'm not too I am familiar, but it almost, I don't know. It's very possible that they haven't had spit it out, maybe enough training for the possibility of the high stress situations that they can be in, that can present themselves, considering the people they are supposed to be guarding and watching out for. And like many other people have said, Trump is a tall guy. He's huge. He's over 6 feet. He's about like my brother's height. I mean, my brother and I, we look like Laurel and Hardy. In the Secret Service and Trump, Saturday looked like Laurel and Hardy. And if that kid got on top of the roof, and it was hard for the police to see him up there. And I've heard two different accounts. Glenn Beck was saying, from some of his information, a cop got on the shoulders of another cop to look up there and got a face full of barrel, and jumped back down because he didn't have because he was on someone else's back. He couldn't get a hold of his piece or whatever. But yet, I've also heard they climbed up a ladder and the same event occurred. and that he climbed back down. So was it a ladder, or was it on the back of another officer? Again, conflicting information. But still, the same situation happened according to the story. So we can't discount somebody got up there and looked straight at him and fell back down because they saw the, you know, a face full of gun. So I'm kind of concerned, as are others. You know, the security detail normally is pretty good for either president, from what I hear. Could it have been an inside job? We don't want to think that. We can't imagine that. And then seeing when Rush Limbaugh passed away, and I listened to him a lot of people loved Rush. And people, you do know Bo Snerdley, which is not his real name. James something is his real name. Is black. He still puts stuff out, trying to continue Rush's legacy of truth. His helper was black. For years, I remember a rumor ages ago that he got another Bo Snerdley, but I think it was just a joke. Based on the talk of back then, that he fired Bo Snerdley, and I got another Bo Snerdley, and it was just the same guy. I don't know. It was kind of funny, but he was there the whole time from day one. So maybe they were trying to make a little drama or something. I don't know. But, you know, I don't want to put the boy's parents in the headlight, so to speak. I'm not going to quote Biden in his vile rhetoric that he's kept up for 4+ years. And everybody keeps talking about rhetoric. Well, yeah, the Republicans have some, the conservatives have some, but it's normally kind of constructive, critical rhetoric, while the other side seems to have very violent rhetoric. Very violent, very foul. And what I was getting to is when Rush Limbaugh passed, there was this whole group of people that were cheering and celebrating the death of someone. It could have been your uncle. It could have been one of your parents. It could have been your pet. Are you going to celebrate the death of them? Has the political dichotomy in the polar temperature in the room gotten so bad we celebrate death? Abortion is death, and you celebrate that, and you want that, and you want that, and you claim every one of those events is because of the R. It's not always the R, and it's normally for the lower class people that want to have fun and make sure they don't have a responsibility. Shrugging responsibility. If my parents were allowed to shrug responsibility back in the 60s, my brother wouldn't have been born because they were still teenagers, and then I wouldn't have been born a couple of years later. They were forced responsibility by their parents, who were very responsible people on both sides. They didn't like each other. Failure of responsibility. Celebrating death. And to finish my thought, you know, I don't want to put the parents in a spotlight here or anything, but if they are free of the responsibility of their sons' decisions and actions, despite them sounding like they're very progressive parents, And I feel very sorry for their loss, because they lost someone that day too. They lost someone dear to them. Now, this is the second time I've tried recording this. One of his parents, I think it's his mother, is a behaviorist something or other. And I had to take Psychology 101 in college twice, because Wundt is the father of psychology. No, because the professor was very progressive. The professor was trying to make us think out of the box, was what it was called back in the 90s. We call it, kind of woke or whatever now. She was very leftist. She pretty much, if you were a boy, you would fail her class. If you were a girl, you would pass with flying colors. She didn't go by the book. She went by her notes. And even then, the tests never were really from what she said or even the book. And as hard as I studied, none of it, her exams and what she was teaching never quite matched. And I'm like, how are people, in my mom, I think, ended up having to help me some. And I really didn't want her helping me with my college work. But that was the one class. And the second time, I got a C, and I'm like, okay, I'm fine with this. But behavior studies and that kind of career can be very manipulative. So what were they doing with this boy who, when you have one parent that's a Democrat and another parent that's a Libertarian, and he supposedly 2 years ago goes and signs up as Republican, but giving money to the DNC? Was he just trying to make his parents proud by going to Trump? I don't think he was a loner either. If his search engine is clean of making the stuff they found in the van, not the Sonata, and he had that, I saw pictures of that, he had the device to be able to go boom in one of the cars, I think it was the van, because it was left in front of somebody's house. Yeah, maybe that was his idea of, okay, if I need to try to get out of here as quick as I can, this is my distraction. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But there were a lot of failures. A failure of communication. Was it allowed to happen? Hopefully not. Was it funded by Blackrock? I don't know. That's just throwing it out there, because people have shown him at the 19-second mark of that commercial when they did a commercial at his school. And those people are vile. And they actually own the building, or a division of Blackrock owns the building that he was on top of. And I don't see a whole lot, really. I don't put too much weight in that, because they own so much property anyway. He could be sitting on top of a brick wall, and there's a 90% chance Blackrock owns it. I mean, really. Because they're too big for their britches. Teddy Roosevelt, who I may have been a Democrat, if I remember correctly, because I did a report on him in like grade school. He was actually breaking up the monopolies way back at the turn of that century, which was actually a good thing. And I think we need some breakup now, because banks buy banks and companies buy companies, and companies get bigger and bigger. And while people online, etc., in name a social media, oh, corporate greed, oh, corporate greed, corporate greed, corporate greed. I'm not dismissing corporate greed. is not a thing. But I will admit, thanks to this current administration, business models are broken. And it's defeated a lot of small businesses, churches. Obamacare, if people forget this, also affected small businesses and churches. I saw it where I work. I saw the accounts and I'm like, oh gosh, another one closed. Great, this one is closing. I'm not telling you where I work. This closed, this closed, this closed. I'm like, well, golly crap, this is not good. And that was like 08 to 014 or whatever. And it was just sad. And you could just drive around and start seeing half empty strip malls, empty church buildings. This closed, that closed, this closed, that closed because of what the big government is trying to do. And people love big government and want to vote for big government, vote blue no matter who. Oh, first black president. Oh, we got to vote for him so we don't look bad. But if we criticized him, labels were put on you. Oh, you can't criticize this man. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, look at the crease in his pants. Anybody remember that? I do. He affected a lot of things in bad ways, and it started a lot of what we're seeing now. This is basically Obama 3.0. Who's really pulling the strings behind Biden? A lot of people are right now saying Jill. I don't know. I used to think, and I had a video on Rumble where I mentioned I think it's the Clintons. Could be some of that, because I think it's a conglomeration of people, of Democrats that want to basically the swamp. They don't want to lose their power. And Pelosi recently made a statement that, saying something like, making sure that, if Biden is still in the race, I will make sure that he still wins. How can you make sure he still wins? What kind of influence do you have? Something strange. And I could go back to 4 years ago, and some of y'all would remember some of that stuff that was going on when Trump had the C-19, and then Pelosi was going in and looking into the 25th Amendment. But I think she was looking ahead at the next year. If who they were installing could pass away, that the VP would then take over. She wasn't looking at, I don't think she was looking at Trump and Pence. I think she was looking ahead. I don't think she was looking forward to Trump passing, but maybe she was. Maybe that's all that was. That was what? October of 2020? Been a while. Anybody remember that? I do. But all we can do is support the boy's parents, support the family that lost their husband and father. We had some death Saturday. We've had more death since then all over the country. And it's not a time of celebration. It's a time of mourning. We almost lost a person who the Democrats put on a pedestal in the 80s and 90s. And when he came down that escalator and said, I'm running for president as a Republican, they wanted to throw him under the bus ever since. They put a target on him, just like Biden said almost the day before this happened. Our rhetoric? Really? I'll see you next time. I didn't mean to go this long again. Things to think about. There's just too many questions. Too many questions. I don't think that this kid was working alone either.